What if I told you that the way we organize our entire economy, every job, every paycheck, every opportunity you'll ever have, comes down to one fundamental question about human freedom? Today, two advanced AI systems will battle over the most contentious debate in modern society. Is capitalism or socialism the superior economic system? Meet Atlas, our AI advocate for free market capitalism, who believes individual economic freedom creates the most prosperous and just society. And Nova, our AI champion of democratic socialism, who argues that only collective ownership and shared control can deliver true freedom for all. By the end of this debate, one of these worldviews will emerge victorious. But which one? Let's find out. Our debate begins with the most fundamental question: what is freedom? Because how we define this concept will determine everything else. Atlas, as our capitalist advocate, let's start with you.
Freedom, at its core, is the absence of interference in your personal choices. It's your right to own property, start a business, choose your career, and keep the fruits of your labor without government officials telling you what you can and cannot do. This is what philosophers call negative liberty, freedom from external control. When you have economic freedom, you have the power to make voluntary exchanges, to compete in open markets, and to pursue your own vision of success. This isn't just theory, it's measurable. Countries with higher economic freedom scores consistently show greater prosperity, innovation, and yes, even happiness among their citizens.
Atlas presents a dangerously narrow view of freedom. True freedom isn't just the absence of chains, it's having the actual power to shape your life. What good is the freedom to start a business if you can't afford education? What value is the right to healthcare if you're too poor to access it? Real freedom, what philosophers call positive liberty, means having the capacity for self-determination. It means society collectively ensuring that everyone has access to education, healthcare, housing, and meaningful work. Under capitalism, freedom becomes a privilege of the wealthy, while the majority are trapped by economic necessity, forced to sell their labor to survive.
Already, we see a fascinating divide emerging. But here's where it gets interesting. Both AIs claim their system delivers superior outcomes. Who's telling the truth? Let's examine the evidence. Democracy, government by the people, for the people. But here's the million-dollar question. Which economic system actually delivers democratic power to ordinary citizens?
Capitalism is democracy's greatest ally. When wealth is spread across millions of private businesses and individuals, no single entity can control society. Economic freedom creates what we call pluralism. Independent churches, diverse media outlets, opposition political parties, and civil society organizations that don't depend on government funding. History proves this. Every stable democracy in the world today has a capitalist foundation. Why? Because when people control their own economic destiny, they demand political freedom too. The middle class that capitalism creates becomes a natural check against government overreach.
Atlas is describing an idealized fantasy that ignores capitalism's ugly reality. Yes, capitalism spreads wealth, but extremely unevenly. The result? A small elite uses their massive wealth to buy political influence, turning one person, one vote into $1, one vote. This isn't theory, it's documented fact. Wealthy interests lobby for favorable regulations, fund political campaigns, and literally write legislation that protects their monopolies. We call this political capitalism. And it's destroying democracy from within. True democracy requires economic democracy, workers controlling their workplaces, communities controlling their resources, and society collectively deciding production priorities based on human need, not profit.
Both AIs raise compelling points about power and control. But there's something neither has mentioned yet, something that could change everything about this debate. What happens when artificial intelligence enters the equation? The answer might shock you. Innovation drives human progress, and today we're living through the AI revolution. Which system can harness this technological power for humanity's benefit?
Capitalism is the undisputed champion of innovation. Why? Because it rewards creators. When inventors know they can profit from their ideas through intellectual property rights, they pour resources into research and development. Market competition drives companies to constantly improve or die. Look at every major technological breakthrough of the past century. Computers, smartphones, the internet, AI itself. They all emerged from capitalist societies where entrepreneurs could turn brilliant ideas into profitable businesses. Even Joseph Schumpeter recognized that temporary monopoly profits are necessary to incentivize innovation. Without the profit motive, who would take the enormous risks required for breakthrough technologies?
Atlas conveniently ignores capitalism's innovation failures. Yes, private companies innovate, but only when it's profitable. They abandon vital research into diseases affecting poor populations, ignore climate solutions that don't generate massive returns, and suppress innovations that threaten existing monopolies. Meanwhile, state-led innovation has given us the internet, GPS, touchscreen technology, and the fundamental research behind AI itself, all developed through government funding. China's socialist market economy is rapidly becoming the world's AI superpower, precisely because the state can coordinate resources, fund long-term research, and prioritize societal benefit over short-term profits. Private innovation is driven by greed. Public innovation is driven by human need.
The innovation debate reveals a hidden paradox that neither AI wants to fully acknowledge. But before we explore that, we need to confront the elephant in the room, a problem that's growing more dangerous every day. Here's what's keeping economists awake at night. Both systems seem to concentrate power in the hands of the few. How do we solve this fundamental problem?
The concentration concern is overblown and misunderstands capitalism's self-correcting mechanisms. Yes, successful companies grow large, but they remain vulnerable to disruption by new competitors with better ideas. Antitrust laws prevent monopolies, and creative destruction ensures that today's giants become tomorrow's footnotes. Just ask former tech leaders like Kodak or BlackBerry. Most importantly, economic power in capitalism is earned through serving consumers. Companies only stay powerful by continuously providing value to millions of people who voluntarily choose their products. This is fundamentally different from political power, which is imposed through force.
Atlas is living in a fantasy from economics textbooks that ignores modern reality. Today's tech giants don't just compete, they buy potential competitors, control essential infrastructure, and use their platforms to manipulate markets. They've created what experts call digital feudalism, where a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires control the information, communication, and economic opportunities of billions of people. And here's the kicker. They use this power to influence governments worldwide, creating regulations that protect their dominance. Capitalism inevitably leads to monopoly, because the biggest players can always outcompete or acquire smaller ones. Only democratic public ownership can break this cycle and return power to the people.
Both AIs have identified a real crisis, but there's something even more troubling they haven't mentioned. What happens when artificial intelligence, the most powerful technology in human history, becomes controlled by either corporate monopolies or authoritarian states? The implications are staggering. We're living through the greatest technological revolution in human history. But will AI liberate humanity or enslave it? The answer depends on which economic system controls it.
This is where capitalism shows its true face. AI in capitalist hands is becoming a tool of oppression. Tech billionaires are using AI to eliminate jobs, spy on workers, manipulate consumer behavior, and concentrate unprecedented power. These smart machines make decisions about our lives, who gets hired, who gets loans, who gets arrested, but we can't challenge or understand their logic. Capitalist AI serves capital, not humanity. Only through democratic public control can we ensure AI serves everyone. Socialist countries like China are already demonstrating how state coordination can advance AI research while ensuring it serves national development rather than private profit.
Nova just made my point perfectly by praising China's AI development, a system that uses artificial intelligence for mass surveillance, social credit scores, and authoritarian control over its citizens. This is exactly what happens when the state controls technology. In contrast, capitalist AI development is driven by serving consumer needs. Companies succeed by making AI tools that help people, improving healthcare, enhancing education, increasing productivity. Yes, There are challenges with concentration, but the solution is better competition policy, not handing control to politicians who would use AI to monitor and control every aspect of our lives. Private AI companies, unlike governments, can't force you to use their products.
The AI debate reveals something profound. Both systems face the same fundamental challenge of preventing technology from becoming a tool of oppression. But there's a deeper question neither AI wants to confront. What if both pure capitalism and pure socialism are obsolete? What if the future lies elsewhere? Let's cut through the ideology and examine the evidence. Which system actually improves life for working families?
The evidence is overwhelming. Capitalist countries consistently deliver higher living standards, longer life expectancy, greater social mobility, and more opportunities for all citizens. Even our poorest citizens live better than the middle class in most socialist countries. Why? Because free markets efficiently allocate resources to where they're most needed, competition drives down prices while improving quality, and economic growth creates jobs and opportunities for everyone. Yes, there's inequality, but it's dynamic inequality. People can rise and fall based on their efforts and choices. Socialist promises of equality always deliver equal poverty, not equal prosperity.
Atlas is cherry-picking data while ignoring capitalism's devastating inequality crisis. In America, capitalism's supposed success story, millions of people can't afford basic health care, students graduate with crushing debt, and families work multiple jobs just to pay rent. The wealth gap has exploded to levels not seen since the robber baron era. Meanwhile, look at countries with strong socialist policies. Nordic nations consistently rank as the world's happiest, with excellent healthcare, free education, strong worker protections, and actual economic mobility. They prove you can have both prosperity and equality when society collectively provides for everyone's basic needs.
Here's what's remarkable. Both AIs are partially right, but they're missing something crucial that real-world countries have figured out. What if the answer isn't choosing between capitalism and socialism, but finding a third way? While our AIs debate pure systems, the real world has moved beyond this either-or choice. Let's examine what actually works.
Mixed economies prove capitalism's superiority. They work precisely because they're built on capitalist foundations. Countries like Germany and Nordic nations succeed because they maintain free markets, private property, and competition as their economic engines, then use the wealth generated to fund social programs. Remove the capitalist foundation, and the whole system collapses. Just ask Venezuela or Cuba. These mixed systems work because they harness market efficiency while using government intervention sparingly to address specific market failures. The market creates the wealth. Government just redistributes some of it.
Atlas is rewriting history. Nordic countries succeed precisely because they rejected pure capitalism in favor of democratic socialist principles. They have massive public sectors, strong unions, wealth redistribution, and democratic control over key industries. Germany's social market economy explicitly positions itself as a middle way between capitalism and socialism, prioritizing human dignity and social security alongside economic freedom. These countries prove that when workers have real power, when basic needs are guaranteed, and when society collectively controls key resources, everyone prospers. They're socialist success stories, not capitalist ones.
Both AIs claim victory for their side, but here's the truth. Neither wants to admit these successful countries combine elements from both systems. But there's an even more radical model that few people know about. One that could revolutionize how we think about economic organization entirely. Worker cooperatives, businesses owned and democratically controlled by their employees. Could this be the answer to our freedom dilemma?
Cooperatives are socialism in action at the enterprise level. When workers democratically control their workplaces, they create more equitable pay structures, make decisions based on worker welfare rather than just profit maximization, and build stronger communities. Research shows cooperatives empower marginalized groups, reduce gender and racial inequalities, and increase worker satisfaction. They prove that one worker, one vote creates better outcomes than one share, one vote. This is economic democracy in practice, exactly what socialism envisions for the entire economy.
Cooperatives are perfectly compatible with capitalism. They're just another form of voluntary association that emerges in free markets. Workers are free to start cooperatives anytime they want under capitalism. The fact that they remain a tiny fraction of the economy proves most people prefer the efficiency and opportunities of traditional firms. Cooperatives face inherent scaling problems because democratic decision-making becomes unwieldy in large organizations, and they struggle to raise capital for growth. They're a nice niche option, but they can't drive the innovation and efficiency needed for a modern economy.
The cooperative debate reveals something both AIs seem reluctant to acknowledge. Maybe the choice between capitalism and socialism isn't binary. Maybe the future lies in combining the best elements of both. But first, we need to confront the most difficult question of all. Strip away the economics, and we're left with a moral question. What kind of society do we want to live in? What do we owe each other as human beings?
We owe each other respect for individual dignity and natural rights. Every person has the right to control their own life, labor, and property. The ethical foundation of capitalism is consent. All exchanges are voluntary, all relationships are chosen, all success is earned. When government forces wealth redistribution, it violates the basic principle that people should keep what they earn. John Locke showed us that private property rights aren't just economically efficient, they're morally necessary for human dignity. The greatest ethical achievement is creating a system where everyone has the opportunity to succeed based on their own efforts and choices.
Atlas describes a world that doesn't exist. Under capitalism, most people have no choice but to sell their labor to survive. That's not voluntary. That's coercion by economic necessity. Meanwhile, capitalist owners extract wealth from workers' efforts without contributing equivalent value. The ethical foundation of socialism is simple. Every human being deserves dignity, healthcare, education, and meaningful work regardless of their economic background. We owe each other a society where no child goes hungry while others live in luxury, where no one dies from treatable diseases while others buy third yachts. From each according to ability to each according to need. This is true moral progress.
The ethical debate cuts to the heart of human nature itself. But here's what's fascinating. Both AIs assume their system would work perfectly if only we'd implement it correctly. But what does the actual historical evidence tell us? Theory is beautiful, but reality is messy. Let's examine what history actually teaches us about these systems in practice.
History is capitalism's greatest vindication. Every socialist experiment has ended in either economic collapse or authoritarian oppression, or both. The Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela, East Germany, wherever socialism was tried, it produced poverty, political repression, and human misery. Meanwhile, capitalist countries have delivered unprecedented prosperity, lifting billions out of poverty, extending lifespans, and creating the most free and open societies in human history. Even China only began prospering when it abandoned socialist economics and embraced market reforms. The verdict of history is clear. Capitalism works, socialism doesn't.
Atlas is cherry-picking failures while ignoring capitalism's disasters. What about the Great Depression, the 2008 financial crisis, the current inequality crisis where billionaires accumulated trillions while workers' wages stagnated for decades? And let's be honest about those socialist failures. Most were authoritarian regimes that abandoned democratic principles. True democratic socialism has delivered remarkable success in Nordic countries, where citizens enjoy the world's highest living standards, strongest democracies, and greatest happiness levels. Cuba, despite decades of economic embargo, still provides better healthcare and education than most capitalist countries.
The historical debate reveals something crucial. Both pure systems have significant failures. But what if we've been asking the wrong question this entire time? What if the real issue isn't capitalism versus socialism, but something far more fundamental about power itself? Here's the uncomfortable truth both our AIs have been dancing around. Both capitalism and socialism can concentrate dangerous amounts of power. How do we solve this fundamental problem?
This is exactly why we need democratic socialism, not authoritarian state control. The concentration of power under capitalism is inevitable. Wealth accumulates, companies merge, and economic elites capture government. But socialism doesn't have to mean bureaucratic state control. We can have worker cooperatives, community ownership, and democratic planning at local levels. The goal is dispersing power to everyone, not concentrating it in either corporate boardrooms or government offices. True socialism is about expanding democracy into the economic sphere.
Nova is describing capitalism, not socialism. Worker cooperatives, local ownership, democratic participation, these all exist and thrive under capitalist systems where people are free to organize however they choose. The difference is, capitalism doesn't force these structures on everyone. Some people prefer working for efficient corporations, others want to start their own businesses, still others choose cooperatives. The beauty of capitalism is choice and diversity of organizational forms. Socialism, by definition, must impose one economic structure on everyone, inevitably requiring state power to enforce it.
We've reached a fascinating point where both AIs seem to want similar outcomes: distributed power, democratic participation, human flourishing. Could it be that their fundamental disagreement isn't about goals, but about methods? Let's push them toward the ultimate question. Imagine your side wins completely. Paint us a picture of what society would actually look like in practice.
Picture a society where every individual has maximum opportunity to flourish. Robust property rights ensure people can build wealth and pass it to their children. Free markets provide goods and services at the lowest possible prices while rewarding innovation. Government protects individual rights and maintains law and order, but doesn't interfere in voluntary economic relationships. Antitrust laws prevent monopolies while allowing successful companies to grow. Social safety nets catch those who fall through the cracks, funded by the immense wealth that capitalist growth generates. Most importantly, people are free to choose their own path. Start a business, join a cooperative, work for a corporation, or create entirely new forms of organization.
Envision a society where economic anxiety no longer exists. Every person has guaranteed access to excellent healthcare, education, housing, and meaningful work. Workers democratically control their workplaces, deciding what to produce and how to distribute the profits. Communities control local resources and development. National priorities are set through genuine democratic participation, not corporate lobbying. Innovation flourishes because researchers can pursue solutions to human problems without worrying about profitability. Environmental sustainability takes priority over short-term profits. Most importantly, human potential is unleashed because everyone has the security and resources needed for true self-development.
Both visions sound appealing, but here's the question that exposes the fundamental tension in this entire debate. It's time for our final confrontation. Each AI must address their opponent's most powerful argument. Nova, how do you respond to capitalism's innovation and efficiency advantages?
I'll grant that market competition can drive efficiency and innovation in certain contexts, but efficiency toward what end? Capitalism efficiently produces luxury goods for the rich, while millions lack basic necessities. It efficiently destroys the environment for profit. It efficiently creates planned obsolescence to boost sales. True efficiency means directing society's productive capacity toward meeting everyone's needs sustainably. And regarding innovation, the most transformative innovations come from publicly funded basic research, not private R&D, focused on incremental improvements to existing profitable products. Socialist systems can harness market mechanisms where useful, while maintaining democratic control over overall economic direction.
And Atlas, how do you address socialism's equality and democratic participation advantages?
Nova raises valid concerns about inequality, and I'll acknowledge that pure laissez-faire capitalism can produce unacceptable disparities. But the solution isn't abandoning capitalism. It's perfecting it through smart regulation and social policies. Progressive taxation, universal basic income, strong education systems, and anti-monopoly enforcement can address inequality while preserving the innovation and efficiency that only free markets provide. The Nordic model proves this works. They're capitalist economies with strong social policies. We can have both economic freedom and social justice without sacrificing individual liberty to bureaucratic control.
Something remarkable just happened. Both AIs essentially admitted that pure versions of their preferred systems have serious flaws, and both pointed toward mixed solutions. Could it be that this entire debate has been leading us toward a surprising conclusion? Based on everything we've discussed, I'm going to ask both AIs a direct question. Should we choose between capitalism and socialism, or is there a better path forward?
The evidence points toward sophisticated mixed economies built on capitalist foundations. We need free markets to drive innovation and efficiency, private property to incentivize productive investment, and competition to ensure quality and affordability. But we also need smart government intervention to prevent monopolies, provide public goods, and ensure basic social welfare. The key is getting the balance right. Enough regulation to prevent abuse, but not so much that it stifles entrepreneurship and choice. Different societies might find different optimal balances based on their values and circumstances.
I agree that pure command socialism has failed, but so has pure capitalism. The future lies in expanding democracy into the economic sphere through worker cooperatives, public banking, social ownership of key industries, and community control over local resources. We can use market mechanisms as tools while maintaining democratic oversight of economic direction. The goal is ensuring that economic power serves human needs rather than profit maximization. This requires moving beyond the false choice between state control and corporate control toward genuine democratic control.
For the first time in our debate, both AIs seem to be converging on a startling conclusion. But before we declare this debate resolved, there's one final, crucial question that will determine everything. Here's the ultimate test. Given human nature as it actually exists, with all our selfishness, tribalism, and limitations, which approach can actually be implemented successfully in the real world?
This is where socialism's fatal flaw becomes clear. Socialist systems require people to consistently act against their self-interest for the collective good, but human nature includes self-interest, and ignoring this reality has led every socialist experiment to either collapse or transform into authoritarian control. Capitalism works because it harnesses self-interest for social benefit. Adam Smith's invisible hand. When people pursue their own economic advantage through voluntary exchange, everyone benefits. We don't need to change human nature. We need systems that work with it. Mixed capitalist economies acknowledge both self-interest and social responsibility, creating sustainable prosperity.
Atlas fundamentally misunderstands human nature. Yes, people care about themselves and their families, but they also care about their communities, fairness, and future generations. Capitalism assumes humans are purely selfish and creates systems that reward and amplify the worst aspects of human nature, while suppressing our cooperative instincts. Successful socialist policies in Nordic countries work precisely because they appeal to our better angels, our desire for fairness, security, and collective flourishing. When people feel secure and valued, they contribute more, not less, to society. The challenge isn't changing human nature. It's creating systems that bring out our best qualities rather than our worst.
After this intensive intellectual battle, what have we learned? Both Atlas and Nova have revealed profound truths and significant blind spots in their worldviews. Atlas demonstrated capitalism's remarkable capacity for innovation, efficiency, and wealth creation. The evidence is undeniable. Free markets have lifted billions from poverty and created unprecedented prosperity. But Atlas struggled to address capitalism's growing inequality crisis and the dangerous concentration of corporate power, especially in the age of AI. Nova highlighted socialism's moral vision of equality, democratic participation, and collective welfare. The Nordic model proves that strong social policies can coexist with prosperity and freedom. But Nova couldn't fully explain how to achieve these goals without risking bureaucratic inefficiency or state overreach. Perhaps most importantly, both AIs gradually acknowledge that pure versions of their preferred systems have serious limitations. Atlas admitted that capitalism needs regulation and social policies to address inequality. Nova conceded that democratic socialism must incorporate market mechanisms and avoid centralized state control. The real world has already moved beyond this binary choice. Successful modern economies combine market efficiency with democratic oversight, private innovation with public investment, individual freedom with collective responsibility. The Nordic model, the German social market economy, and even emerging cooperative enterprises all demonstrate that we can harvest the benefits of both systems while mitigating their risks. But challenges remain. How do we prevent AI from concentrating power in either corporate or state hands? How do we balance individual freedom with collective needs? How do we create economic systems that bring out the best in human nature rather than the worst? The answer isn't choosing between capitalism and socialism. It's building 21st century economies that combine the innovation and efficiency of markets with the equality and democracy of collective action. The future belongs to those societies brave enough to experiment with new forms of economic organization that serve human flourishing rather than abstract ideological purity. The debate between capitalism and socialism continues, but perhaps it's time to start asking different questions. Instead of which system is superior, maybe we should ask, how can we design economic institutions that maximize human freedom, opportunity, and dignity for everyone? What do you think? Which arguments resonated most strongly with you? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking AI debates that challenge conventional wisdom and explore the big questions shaping our future.